in the Midrash? Sefer Chumash what? Nicknamed. What'd you say? Pikudim. And we explained that Pikudim, which are numbers, because there's a mifkad in year number 2, the beginning of the book, the Sefer in Bamidbar 1. And now we're in year number 40. And therefore here's another mifkad. And there are several in the beginning of the book. And that's why the nickname is Pikudim, numbers. So here we have Vayachrei Magefa, and there's a stop sign. That's called a Parshat Ptucha. Everything is open until the end of the line. And your question is, why? But let's just read the second part of the pasuk. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe v'el Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen lemor. Who's the recipient of prophecy here?
Moshe.
And not?
Aaron.
Aaron is dead.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Elazar. Elazar is not a prophet. So what does it mean that Hashem is speaking to Moshe v'el Elazar? Simple, through. Elazar will be spoken to through the prophetic level of Moshe Rabbeinu. Yet we've yet to answer, why is there this stop sign, the rest of the line? Ken, do you see it in my Chumash? Ken, do you see the bottom line? It's quite visible in this, the way this is printed. That's the way it's written in a Sefer Torah. The rest of the line is skipped. Obviously, there's a need here for some sort of line of demarcation or separation between the two parts. The Balaturim, remember we mentioned his name yesterday. Really? Wow. So may these words be Eloi Nishmato. Thank you. Is he probably buried in France, I would assume, right? He's the son of the Rosh. I would assume that he's buried in France. The Balaturim says the following. He deals with a lot of grammatical matters and letters. He says Moshe made a hafsaka here. He made a break between the Magefa, the plague, where 24,000 died, and between the upcoming Mifkad, Minyan, the upcoming census counting of Bnei Yisrael. And your question is, why? So there shouldn't be, God forbid, negativity, something evil, something bad, which is stemming from the Magefa of 24,000 dying, when we are counting people. Remember, no, we're not going to count you are number 1 and you're number 2, because each and every member of Israel is a world in of himself. It could be that we're counting noses, or we're counting half shekel pieces, we're counting other things to represent each and every person. Because the Torah does say, in the book of Shemot, in Kitisa, v'lo yifkodotam, shelo yeh negev bifkodotam, right? In Parshat Kitisa, chapter 31 there, or 32, when we deal with countings there, the Torah says when you're going to count half shekel pieces or other things. Why? Because unlike what Hitler did, Yamach Shemo v'zichro, and he branded us just, we're only numbers, but we believe that we're souls. We're a world in and of itself. We have tremendous content, tremendous abilities, tremendous neshamot, and therefore we're not just a number. We can't be limited to a number. We're like a world in of ourselves.
In the Midrash?
Absolutely, on the Psukim in Kitisa, chapter 31 in the book of Shemot. So that's what the Balaturim says. It has to be a hafsaka year between the Magefa, the plague, and between the upcoming Minyan census, so that maybe bad vibes or bad things spiritually of the Magefa do not affect the counting here. That's one meaning that I saw. Another meaning, I think, is in Rashi. You want to?
Yeah, why a census after the plague appears?
Oh,
Hashem cares about every nation.
That's right. Very nice. What you just said right now, you directed your mind to the Midrash that Rashi says here in Pasuk Aleph. Maybe all of you want to see. Look, find Rashi, Pasuk Aleph of chapter 26. Rashi quotes a Midrash called the Tanchuma Midrash. Rashi says, Mashal lero'eh. This idea of the break, that's what I think Rashi is dealing with, because Rashi writes the word v'gomer, etc. He's not per se dealing with a particular word. He's dealing with the makeup of the pasuk. So Rashi says, Mashal lero'eh. This is a metaphor for a shepherd. Shenichnasu ze'ivim letoch edro. Wolves have barged into his flock. Vargubem, and the wolves are killing. Vumoneutam. After the terrible event, he counts them. Leidam minyana no Torah, to know what's left over. Of course, it's out of love. It's not just out of bookkeeping or accounting to know what. So too here, I think Rashi is really dealing with why is the Magefa now and right after the counting of Bnei Yisrael. So we understand that the counting of Bnei Yisrael is because we've lost people, and right now members of Bnei Yisrael have to be counted again. But that's not really exactly what I thought I was going to quote Rashi for. 1 second. I thought I was going to quote Rashi, or was it the Ibn Ezra? Was it the Ibn Ezra? Excuse me, gentlemen. Yes.
Divine Land.
Yes. Okay. I meant something else. The point that you said is taken by the Tanchuma that Rashi quotes. Again, we're treating the question, why have the break? What's outstanding? There's a break. The rest of the line is empty. And then the next subject is the immediate counting of Bnei Yisrael. Why? So that's what the Ibn Ezra brings. And that's what the Ibn Ezra says. You should all know. Those that are being counted are those that remained alive after the Magefa. And the ones that are being counted are going into the land of Israel. Remember, we are in year number 40. This is our last year of our desert galut. We learned about that Miriam passed away in month number 1. We learned already that Aaron passed away. Don't close your eyes. In month number? Now I got him. 5. Excellent. 5 is what? I know that.
Number 1 is Tishrei.
No, 1 is not Tishrei. 1 is Nisan. Quickly, number 5. Av. The month of Av. Our next month after Tammuz. That means, remember this, it's quite flabbergasting that when we get to Ve'ela Dvarim, Asher Diber Moshe al Kol Yisrael, the beginning of Deuteronomy, and there the Torah gives the date, the first day of the 11th month, that's the first of Shvat. That means all of Chumash Dvarim, until the passing away of Moshe Rabbeinu, is 36 or 37 days. The book of Dvarim is 36. Have you ever thought about that before? It's mind-boggling. It's only 36 or 37 days. We're approaching that time. And therefore the Mifkad is made now, and we're asking ourselves, put our thinking caps on. We learned Bamidbar Aleph, and there God said, Se'u. Se'u. He didn't say Pekod, he said Se'u. Laseit, the verb laseit.
To raise.
To raise up, to leave, to carry, to schlep, and we'll talk your language in a moment, right? A truck is called Masait. Here too, in verse 2, you see the commandment verb, Se'u et rosh kol adat b'nei Yisrael. Se'u. Who remembers? Why does the Torah use the verb laseit, Se'u, in the case of counting? Do you remember, gentlemen?
I was on with Nassim now, to bring them to their game.
Renan, what are you saying? Se'u, laseit. Wow, that's not. Sorry. Laseit. Beautiful singer, right? Esa inai leharim. I shall lift up my eyes. Who remembers the gist of things? Why is counting on the word laseit? I know you. You think you're just a little screw in a big company. You're just a little bolt. You think you're unimportant. I know you. And therefore you're not motivated. Yeah, you, with the kippah. When we're counting each and every person is valuable. He's uplifted. He's important. That's what we call, especially in this yeshiva, when we're dealing with Klal Yisrael, the love of the nation and the neshama of Am Yisrael. Don't forget, yeah, you, sitting at the end of the table, you're important. You have a lot of value. Each and every member of the nation of Israel. When he's counted, wow, I'm counted? We have an expression in Hebrew. When you're not important, we say, we don't count you. We don't look at you. You've heard of that expression? Lo sofrim otcha. Have you heard of that expression, Thomas, or not yet?
Not yet.
Have you heard it? Let me ask Yisrael, just arrived from Hong Kong. Yisrael, are you important?
Oh, so.
He's wonderful. Do you know why you're important? Because Hashem made you. Hashem created you. That's right. That's right. So here it is. When we went back to Bamidbar number 1, do you remember the ideas of counting Bnei Yisrael? Number 1, we thought, why do we have to be counted? Why? Bamidbar Aleph. We're about to be moving for the first time after being parked an entire year, less 10 days in Midbar Sinai. Where are we going to? Eretz Yisrael. Who's waiting for us?
Canaanites.
With Hershey's chocolate bars? Absolutely not. What are they ready to throw at us?
Stone spears.
Stone spears, rocks, whatever. Right? Right? And therefore, we have to logistically, orderly, get organized to get an army in order to go into the war. Here, is that the reason why we're counting? Maybe. That's what you wanted to suggest 20 minutes ago. But there's another reason. What is the next subject immediately after this, gentlemen? Go through the entire chapter of counting. I've arrived to Pasuk Nun Bet 52. After all the counting, let's look at Nun Bet 52. Find it. Who hasn't found it? Who hasn't found it? You found it? I'm waiting. Vaydaber Adonai Moshe lemor la'ele. To these. Next 2 words. Techalek haaretz. La'ele. To these. Who are these? The ones counted. Exactly. Is that what we wanted to say? The ones that are counted. Now let's go back and ask our question. What could be the reason for the mifkad, for the counting? Answer?
Because we were forced to land.
We're going to go into land and
Who is big will get a big portion, who is small will have a small portion, and the ladies of the father who died for his...
Stop there. Don't do too much. What you're saying could be correct.
Of course.
When we open up Masechet Baba Batra and start learning several chapters of Talmud regarding the laws of inheritance, one of the hardest chapters we have, Baba Batra. Chapters, 4, 5, 6, or 7? I forgot, something like that. So let's just say in general, what you said initially, we have accounting in order to divide the land to these tribes. Now let's see some outlines of the counting.
Being very specific, it's naming every single person.
We're not mentioning, we're counting each and every tribe.
Yeah, but saying exactly how many are in there.
And therefore?
And therefore, this is their source of inheritance. This is like their proof that I am one of those, and this is my...
That's right. This is my deed to the land of Israel. My deed. This is the title. Right now we're going to build... It's right here. Let's start reading and understanding the content of this command. Let's start reading. Okay, we're in Pasuk Bet. Se'u et Rosh, the heads. Kol Adat B'nai Yisrael. Adat B'nai Yisrael means the entire nation. From when? Mi ben 20 shana v'mala, which alludes to what you wanted to support. As the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avot, when you're 20 years old, you have the ability, ben 20 lirdof. Remember? It says when you're 20 years old, you have the ability of pursuit, meaning in war. But that's the importance of 20 years. 20 years is utter responsibility regarding punishment and other matters. Now, how are you going to be counted? Leveit avotam, according to your father's house. Meaning your tribe, your tribal title will be according to Abba and not according to? Who has to be counted? Kol yotzei tzava b'Yisrael. Okay, online, you're going through the medical test. We're going to check to see you. Are you capable of running? Are you capable of fighting? Anyone and everyone counted? Only those that are capable of fighting. Kliyakar. What's that, sir?
If his father is Jewish, his mother is not.
We're not talking about that. Right now, we're after Sinai. Everyone did Gior. The entire nation did the process of so-called Gior, where until now, the Hebrew people were decided upon their Abba, their fathers. But at Sinai, as we see from a certain pasuk, regarding marriage in the book of Deuteronomy, that what determines if you're Jewish or not? The mother. That's at Sinai. Until Sinai, we go according to the lineage of the Abba. From Sinai, from Ima, this is learned out in Psukim in the book of Dvarim. But who's going to be counted? Kol yotzei tzava b'Yisrael. Are you in shape? If you want to be counted, you have to be in shape. Are you in shape? Can you do a little? I hope so. Otherwise, you're not going to be counted. This is one of the miracles that happened. Everyone that was counted had fitness. Kli Yakar, I think, says that in Bamidbar Aleph. Vaydaber Moshe, Pasuk Gimel, Velazar Kohen Otam Bi'arvot Moav, Al Yarden Yericho Lemor. What's specified? Aleph. Where is the counting taking place? In what area? Arvot Moav. Did you go on that trip last week? Did you see the plains of the Moabite area? I saw it as well. Oh, you were there? Fantastic. But you guys decided to go on a different road, so I'm not so sure you saw it. Oh, on the way coming back, you went that way, I heard. Okay. But this is Al Yarden Yerecho. We're on which side of the Jordan River right now? We're on the east side. And what's on the west side? Yarden Yerecho. The Jordan River that's in front of the city called, which, as we learn in the book of Yoshua, becomes numero uno. City number to be conquered. You have a bullet count, right? How many bullets did we shoot in Yericho? No bullets. We huffed and puffed. We encircled the city. And what came down on Shabbos? The walls came down. And then you have a match. You put the city
on Shabbat or before?
on Shabbat itself. I know you're religious, but God told us to conquer the city on Shabbos. What can you do? You have to listen to Shabbos. Listen to God's command. Gentlemen, our Yarden Yericho. Already the Torah starts using terms of getting ready to go into the Jericho, right? Let's go on. מבין 20 שנה ומעלה כאשר ציווה השם אל משה בן ישראל, היוצאים מארץ מצרים. Do you know who is inheriting the land? The people that left Eretz Mitzrayim. These are the ones that are left. And who's counted first, my dear friends?
Reuben.
Why? Tell me how many families of Reuven exist. Count them.
Any main families or all the ones listed?
I count families. These families are main families. I counted 4. We have Chanoch, we have Falu, we have Chetzron, and we have Carmi. 4 families. My dear friends, listen to the following understanding, which takes into account what Amos was explaining in verses 51, where it's saying you're gonna to the greater part, they're gonna get a greater piece of land. To a smaller part, gets a smaller piece of land. It's a very complex matter, Amos. I want to just share with you in a short way to help understand right now, and that is the following: a small tribe in populace will inherit just like a large tribe in populace. Number 2, inside the shevet, according to the number of families, they too will get an equal portion. Each and every family, if there are 4 families, we divide the portion of Reuven 25% to 4 different families. That's how will they get it. Where will be Larav Tarben Nachlato Vilamat Tamid Nachlato, which you quoted in 52-53? That's already inside the next part of the families. If there's more children or grandchildren growing up in those families, then you will understand that they're going to get a greater portion. But again, this is a very complex situation, and we don't have the time to see all the different approaches. I'm giving you a approach according to Chazal, that a less populous tribe inherits just like a greater populace, and each tribe, they're going to count the families, and each family will receive an equal portion of land in the land of Israel. And what the Torah says later on, Larav Tarbeh, Vilama'at Tamit, to the greater portion give more land, to the less, that's talking about the children of the children. In other words, inside Reuven, in the grandchildren, it could be this family is greater, they're going to get a greater portion, because you have to feed those kids. That's regarding Reuven. Okay? Is it clear though to us that as opposed to the objective of the counting in Bamidbar Aleph, which is to get ready to go into the country to fight a war, the major objective here for counting is for what? Chalukat haaretz. One more time? One more time? There you go, I caught you almost. Chalukat haaretz, apportioning the land amongst the tribes. Gentlemen, when you're talking about Reuven, we have some losers in the tribe of Reuven. They're mentioned here. What are the names of those losers? That's right. Datan and Aviram from the tribe of Reuven. They were important people. They were Kriyei Ha'edah, as the Torah says in verse 9. I'm scanning through verse 9 right now. Kriyei Ha'edah. They were the leaders that were called for public matters. But you know what these guys were interested in? It says, Asher hitzu al Moshe v'al Aharon. They caused strife. They were not a bunch of righteous Jews that were looking to go into the holy and bring, what's the name of that offering? The Ketoret offering. Who is interested really in bringing the Ketoret offering to get close to God? 250 righteous heads of Sanhedrin. But Datan and Aviram, they were not interested in getting close to God. They were interested in getting more honor, more power. And therefore the Torah spells it out right away here in verse 9. Asher hitzu al Moshe. They caused strife against Moshe v'Aaron badat Korach. And what happened to them? And let's read Pasuk Yud. I'm reading verse 10. V'tiftach haaretz et pia. Who has a big mouth here? I say, no one wants to say I have a big mouth. You're also humble. It's euphemism, huh? You have a big mouth. Ah! The earth opened up its mouth unusually. I know I get your attention. Now, that's something, it's not just a earthquake. Who remembers the famous Mishnah in Masechet Avot? Those Mishnayot that enumerate 10 things. Asara dvarim nivru bein hashmashot. Remember that Mishnah. 10 entities were created on Yom Shishi. Bein hashmashot. What is bein hashmashot? The twilight, right? Between sunset and the stars coming out. One of the 10 things already created at the beginning of creation to mark or to demonstrate that it's something supernatural related to the metaphysical. It's not day and it's not night. It's at twilight time. One of those 10 things enumerated in that list is?
The mouth of Korach.
Not the mouth of Korach.
the
Pi haaretz. Pi haaretz. And also, Pi ha'aton. Very good. The mouth of the donkey of that. Those are 2 of the 10. So we're here told again that the earth opened up its mouth. This was already earmarked from the time of creation. Would you please raise your hand? I want you to know about 5,700 years ago, God knew exactly you're going to raise your hand now, even though you had freedom of choice to do it. Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat techila, God knew that you're going to raise your hand. He must be great, God, huh? That he knew, for more than 5,000 years, you're going to raise your hand. I agree as well. Gentlemen, at the end of the falling of Korach and his people, it says, Uvnei Korach lo metu. We briefly touched upon. Who didn't die? Why not? They did tshuva. They were righteous. Who's learning Sefer Shmuel today? Anyone in their study learning the book of Samuel, Sefer Shmuel? I'm talking about Samuel number 1. He was very important. Samuel 2 doesn't make a difference. Shmuel was what member of the nation of Israel? A Levi. His lineage. If you open up the book of Divrei Hayamim, book of Chronicles 2, chapter 19, there we have the lineage stated going back to Shmuel, and Shmuel goes back to Korah. How could it be? Answer. His children were alive. They did tshuva. Uvnei Korach lo metu. It says here. We mentioned briefly in our learning a month ago that on Rosh Hashanah of the holiest days, right before the shofar blowing, we recite a particular psalm, a Tehillim of David HaMelech, Lamnatzeach livnei Korach mizmor. That's like we're saluting Bnei Korach, that they did tshuva, they didn't go in the path of their terrible father. And we mentioned Bnei Korach Dafka right before the shofar blowing on Rosh Hashanah. Let's go on regarding the Mifkad. Bnei Shimon. Bnei Shimon. Give me their sum total, sir.
Which sir?
Of Shimon. Sum total of Shimon,
22.
22,200. If you go back to Midbar Sinai, how many were they?
59,300.
Right? Wow, you count fast. 59,300. What's your problem?
It's more than 24,000 that died.
So first of all, that's a decline which is hard to understand. How could there be such a decline in 40 years of more than 37,100 according to... Remember, the numbers in the Torah, there are some great commentators that explain that the Torah is rounding out the numbers. You'll notice almost every number is hundreds, hundreds, hundreds. It's rounded out. Rounded off. Is that the proper term? My English is not too good. Rounded off. Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you. Now, one explanation is, and the Tanchuma says this, the Midrash Tanchuma, that all 24,000 that died in the plague were from the tribe of Shimon. They were all from that tribe. That's bad news. In addition, to account for your question you're asking, well, there's a decline here of 37,000. Apparently their fertility rate also went down. More people dying than more people being born. So here, we're seeing part of the calamity. Rashi, if you're interested in the source, Rashi in Pasuk Yud Gimel verse 13, Rashi brings the Tanchuma. He writes that they were from the tribe of all. He says, it appears to me that all 24,000 that fell from the tribe of Shimon. Other highlights, gentlemen, of here. The largest tribe, as was in the first counting, as is in this counting, is which tribe? Yehuda. Sum total?
76,000.
Okay. Can you lower the mazgan? Put it on lower 1 or 2 degrees, thank you. It's 76,500. That's quite a large tribe, correct? Ruvain, Shimon, Gad. Why in this order?
Their camp.
That's the camp. That's the camp. Ruvain, Shimon, Gad. And now we're Yehuda, Yisachar, and Zvulun. That would be another camp of the way we're camping and working in the desert. By the way, Yisachar, who remembers one of its primary objectives of the blessing of Yaakov Avinu? Study of Torah. Beautiful. And therefore, there's an Orach Chaim HaKadosh that says each name of the families listed here have something to do with the study of Torah. For instance, the first family listed here is a Tolah. Comes from the word Tolat, a worm. If you really want to make yourself a top student of Torah, then you have to make yourself like humble, make yourself almost nothing like a worm. How humble is a worm?
Apparently very humble.
Apparently very humble. And it doesn't mean you have to go right now and look for your local worm, but so low, so slow. You have to lower yourself. That's what it really means, to humble yourself, to suspend yourself vis-a-vis the divine entity in the world. That's Tola. Fuva is you have to lifanot et atzmecha. You have to clear out time to study Torah. And then we see Yeshuv. And then we have to learn Torah sitting down in yeshiva and so on and so forth. Gentlemen, let's go on. The next tribe after Zvulun, Yisachar, Zvulun, we have who? Bnei Yosef. And who's first? Menachem and then Ephraim. Who's the oldest? Who's counted first in Bamidbar Aleph? Ephraim. So your question is? Why is it flipped? Why is it flipped? So the Chizkuni, one of the great Rishonim, deals with this matter and says that number one, Menachem increased in their population dramatically. And number two, the counting there was specifically according to the camps of Israel. Who is the leader of the western camp? It would be Ephraim. And therefore then, in Bamidbar Aleph, he's counted first. Here we're not counting necessarily according to the camps, the way they were ordered, although we do see that's very, very similar so far. And therefore, if Menachem comes first. The total sum number of Menachem, gentlemen? 52,700. The first mifkad, in the second year, they were only 32,200. They almost doubled their population. Tremendous. What did they get? What's that word? They got a bracha. Bet, Reish, Kaf. We've said this in the past. 222, right? The singles digit, the units digit, the tens digit, and the hundreds digit. Bet, Reish, Kaf. Each digit in plenty, in the plurality. So they're getting a very special bracha. Do you remember what Yosef's bracha? They had like a bracha against ayin hara. They're compared to what? The dagim. I think, if I remember correctly, in the bracha of Menachem. And therefore, the dagim, they swarm in numbers every time they're giving birth. Here, Yosef gets an amazing bracha of plenty, and they're almost doubling themselves. And then we have the counting of Ephraim, which is not high at all. Only how much? 32,500, as opposed to 40,500. They have a decline in number. Okay, let's go now to by the way, another reason why to count Menashe first. Menashe will be inheriting land not only on the west side of the Jordan River, but on the right. We're going to learn about that in Parshat Matot, the same Shabbos we go together to Akko, God willing. And there we see that Reuven and Gad come forth, initiate a meeting with Moshe Rabbeinu. Hey Moshe, how you doing? You know, we're a bunch of shepherds. We need a lot of pasture land. Maybe we'll take over these lands here on this side. That's what they come and approach Moshe Rabbeinu. Oh my gosh, Moshe says, oh no. Sin of the spies number 2. They don't want to cross the Jordan River. They want to stay on the other side and not come over. He almost gets a heart attack. What's going on here? He's about to accuse them of the sin of the